Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the first full week of summer for our students and our last week of work for our teachers. This is our final DEI town hall of this school year. We will like to continue this programming going into next school year, and so as soon as we do, we will let you know the dates for when we set those up. So we have a couple of things on the agenda for tonight. And so first we'd like to kind of do an interim introduction, an interim check-in on our equity audit with Mass Insight, and Robbie will introduce himself shortly. But then we would also like to introduce you to CVSD's new DEI Director, Dr. Asma Abunaib, and we'll spend some time talking with her about her story and how she would like to help us achieve DEI within our own district. So I guess we could go around and introduce ourselves, our role, and I guess we'll start with that. And so I'm Renee Sanchez. I'm the superintendent for CVSD. Ainika.
You're muted, Ainika. We want to hear your beautiful voice.
Thank you. My name is Ainika Luna. I am the Spanish teacher and DEI coach at Heinsberg Community School.
Thank you. Bageshri.
Hi, I'm Bageshri Blasius. Excuse the non-camera-ness. I'm having some issues with my internet at home here in Jericho. But I am the CVSD social studies teacher, as well as the, CVU social studies teacher and CVU coach. Thank you.
Thank you. Bonnie.
Hi, everyone. I'm Bonnie Birdsall, the Director of Digital Learning and Communication for the school district.
All right. Thank you. Angela.
Hi, everyone. I'm Angela Arsenault, and I'm the chair of the CVSD school board.
Thank you. Robbie.
Thank you, everyone. My name is Robbie Curry. I am an engagement manager with Mass Insight Education and Research. I'm very happy to be here with you all today.
And Asma.
Hi. Should I do a short introduction like that?
just a short introduction, and we'll get to the longer discussion, longer
okay.
introduction later.
Okay. So my name.
Can you hear Asma?
No, I think she used her bandwidth early on. And
Oh.
Okay, Asma, could you do it again? We lost you for about 30 seconds.
Oh, okay. My name is Asma Abunaib. I am the new DEI Director for the school district.
Okay, thank you so much. And so we'll go ahead and get started. And so, so this first part of our presentation, as for those of you who've been following along, we started our process to have our school district undertake an equity audit beginning back in October, November, and then the process actually began December, January. And the company that we contracted with is called Mass Insight, and Robbie is the engagement manager who's been handling our account and handling the audit during this time. So Robbie, I guess, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, even before we get to what the equity audit is? I think it's important for our CVSD audience to know who you are and what Mass Insight does.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that. So my name is Robbie Curry, and as I shared, I am an engagement manager on the Mass Insight team. I'll explain a little bit about my history, just background very quickly, and then a little bit about Mass Insight. So I come to this role having spent 15 plus years as an educator, started off as a classroom teacher, led as director of special education for middle school, and was a school leader as a school principal and chief academic officer. And so Mass Insight specifically is a mission-driven nonprofit, national nonprofit committed to simply change outcomes for students that we serve. And we do that specifically through different services. And the one that we are working with you all on is called an equity audit. It's a name given to what is essentially a diagnostic, an opportunity for us to come in and do a comprehensive review of both strengths, but also to be able to look for opportunities for improvement. And so specifically, the equity audit is designed to do exactly that. It's designed to look at both strengths and opportunities of the district as it relates to diversity, equity, and inclusion. And the conclusion of this process results in a report that produces a set of findings related to our equity framework. And so for some of you guys that have followed along this process, some of these things are not new to you, but for anyone else, if this is new to you, I'll briefly go over what that framework entails. And so our framework, equity audit framework, looks at 9 specific domains related to issues of diversity, equity, and inclusion, and how those things specifically interact with the overall I cannot say that word today. The way that the school runs. I'm going to steer away from it right now. And so those 9 domains, we look at vision, strategy, and culture. We look at what does accountability specifically look like for student access and then outcomes to an educational program. What does sort of governance conditions looks like? Focus on specifically how does the school provide a culturally and linguistically sustaining teaching environment for its students. We look at what are the conditions that allow for students to be ready to learn. We look at what's considered workforce development, and that's somewhat a misnomer if you ever really come out of the workforce development program. But what that really looks like for us is how does the district not only attract, recruit, and retain its people, but what are the systems and structures in place to develop them over time? We look at family and community engagement. We do a comprehensive review of both quantitative and qualitative data. And then we look at overall school management. What does the actual management of the school and the conditions of the school that relates to, again, the overall business strategy and culture of the district. And so these are the 9 areas in which we sort of take a lens and we review, we go through this process with the district. And so what this has looked like, and I may be able to share my screen if I have permission.
Are you able to?
Yes. There we go. If I can get a thumbs up from you, Renee, if you see the equity audit time. All right, anyone, thank you, perfect. And so broadly speaking, this is how long the process would take. And so as Renee shared, we initially contracted back at the end of last year, end of the calendar year, but we officially kicked off the engagement. We had a kickoff meeting in December, and then we ramped up when it came to January, February. But in total, it can take approximately 8 months to complete the entire process. And what I would like to do is give you all an update on where we are in this timeline and then where we are going. And so as you can see, the process is divided into 4 phases. We are just wrapping up the 3rd phase, which is stakeholder engagement. What stakeholder engagement has allowed for us to do is to visit each of the communities in Champlain Valley. So myself and another colleague was able to come and do some in-person interviews with the teaching staff, with students, different community stakeholders. In addition to our in-person interviews, we were able to administer 6 unique surveys designed specifically for different stakeholder groups in CVSD. To date, we've collected over 2,000 student responses. We have over 100 different responses from school-based staff. We've been able to engage in approximately at this point around 43 hours of live direct engagement with different stakeholders, from students, teachers, staff, different community members, parents, and where we are going in is into phase 4. And this is where my team's hard work really comes in. It's about a 2 to 3 month process in which we go through all the data. At this point, we have a lot of different data points across many different tools that we developed in order to solicit input across CVSD. And so the analysis begins. What that will entail is our team literally reading everything, analyzing all data points, triangulating all data points across different tools that we created in order to gather input. And eventually what this will result in is a report of findings. The report of findings will detail not only what we consider foundational strengths, as it would speak to one of the 9 different domains. And so we'll be able to articulate what are some of the strengths that we are seeing coming out of CVSD, but we'll also be able to reflect back to the community opportunities that we believe can continue to push CVSD in the direction of its equity journey. And so we anticipate, and I think, Renee, you have this date, but we anticipate having the report of findings ready by the end of August. And I believe that it will be shared publicly sometime in September, but I think Renee has that specific timeline.
Yeah, I think we will have it presented at our September board meeting.
Perfect. And so with that, we are again wrapping up phase 3, which was our live engagement, being able to speak with different stakeholders, solicit input. And now we are transitioning into the hard work, making sense of a lot of information. I can assure you that our team reads everything. We read every word that has come from this community. We shared that the information that is provided to us is kept anonymous and confidential. That's why we read every single thing, to make sure that nothing gets reported that could reveal. But what is important about that is that we take very seriously and are very grateful for the CVSD community welcoming us into your schools and community. And we find it an absolute privilege to be able to be on this journey with you all. The last thing I will say is that, and you may be getting at this, Renee, so I may be jumping ahead, is we are just now sitting with the data. And so there's nothing that I could share with you at this point other than there's a lot of information to go through. But what I will share is that when it does come time to share the report and for the community to read it and process it, I think you should read it for exactly what it is. It's a diagnostic. There will be some things in here that shine some really positive light onto the CVSD community, but there will be some real work to be done. And I think if we can coalesce around what will it take in order to implement what ultimately becomes the recommendations, I think that different members of the community will feel like their voices were heard, and that through the recommendations, we are able to, again, get to a closer place that CVSD sees themselves in terms of their equity journey.
Thank you, Robbie. And one other, you mentioned that we're almost done collecting the data. There's another piece that will continue again tomorrow. Tomorrow, once we get you that information, we will have randomized phone calls to families. Is there anything more you can say about that?
Absolutely. So the last piece of our stakeholder engagement is after we've sifted through all of the different surveys, we've been able to look at the diversity of the different stakeholders that we were able to have the privilege of being able to talk to. We engage in one last round of feedback input, which is through randomized calls to families. They are scheduled to take place this week between the hours of 5 p.m. and 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We hold about 15 minutes per conversation, but on average, they're about 7 minutes. And what it is an opportunity to have a very direct one-on-one conversation with a family, oftentimes in their home language. And what it is it's another opportunity for us to hear directly some of the high interest, I would say, questions that we believe are pertinent, and to be able to provide a one-on-one space for people to provide answers, because we find that that is a very safe space for families. And so we will conduct upwards of 5 hours, total hours of direct family phone calls, which should reach on, if we were to say around 15 minutes per call, we should be able to get to about 20, 25 families.
Okay, great. Thank you, Robbie.
Absolutely.
So once we have this information, is there, can you either describe maybe some of the processes that other school districts have used their audits once they've been completed? And then you also know that we have a strategic plan coming up too as well. So do you have any recommendations on how we can utilize the findings to help us with the strategic planning process?
Absolutely. Implement all the recommendations. No, I say that sort of tongue in cheek, right? And so I am very serious when I say that I think if you can appreciate the recommendations as a reflection of community voice and a reflection of what stakeholders are pointing to in terms of the direction they would like to see their community to go, my direct answer is implement the recommendations. However, I've seen different districts use different processes in order to do that. And so how different districts treat the actual report looks very different. However, what I can share with you is what we are prepared to do with CVSD and how that sort of dovetails with different things you would see across different districts. And so the first is we first go through a series of unpacking sessions with you, Renee, and your team before the report is released publicly. We share the report internally. And I want to be clear, we are the authors of the report, and I say that to assure that what comes through in the report is 100% influenced through what we have gotten from our engagement, and what we report is wholly based on what we can find and triangulate across the data. But we do go through a process previewing the report, making sure that the district, you, Renee, your cabinet really understands what is going to be in the report, what the findings are, what the recommendations are. It's in that space that we then strategize around what is the best way to then share this with the community. Now, I know that your specific report will be presented in front of your board, and so there will be a public presentation of the report. Again, we're the authors, CVSD are the owners. We're going to recommend that the report becomes public and to remain public. However, we also will strategize and plan with you on around what are different settings and venues in which you are able to take this information on what I haven't really come up with the name for, but I would love for you to do a speaking tour. I think you, Renee, being a new superintendent in the district, I think a lot of the work around both the consolidation and moving together as a single unit in CVSD, and to be able to, I think, really bring the findings directly back to the people who provided us the information will be part of our strategy around how do we take apart what is ostensibly a very long report. I will promise you it will be very long. But how do we break it down in such a way that all of your stakeholders not only understand it, but also make sure that the relevant parts of the report speak to what was of interest to that particular stakeholder group. And so we will design sort of a speaking tour, if you will, that allows for you to Renee to become the voice, the face of this in the recommendations that come out of that. Now, again, a part of the strategy, and then we will think about this, depending on the number of recommendations and what the recommendations are called for. I've seen some districts then build committees around the different recommendations to begin to then implement around them. So that's one strategy. And it all depends. Sometimes our recommendations point to the needing to hire a person to facilitate some of the recommendations. And so again, we really sit down with the district and strategize around what is the best way to make the information accessible? What is the best way to make sure that all stakeholders understand where this report is speaking to their concerns and how it will address it? And then what is the support operationally that we can support and help define for the district in order to make the information widely available to your stakeholders?
Thank you, Robbie. Thank you so much. I am looking forward to them as I'm kind of doodling off to the right. I'm like scheduling our DEI town halls, but then also realizing we should probably have strategic plan town halls as well on the opposite months. So that, and then reaching out to the individual schools to see if they have parent nights or PTO nights where I can come and deliver the information if that's available.
Exactly.
I guess at this point, Robbie, if there's anything else that you would like to add, or if anybody has any questions for Robbie at this time?
I do.
Yeah, Asma, go ahead.
Okay, so I want to thank you for the presentation. I just want to clarify that I got it right. So the coming phase, the third phase, also includes data collection? Because
so data collection was our second phase. So the way that our engagement builds on each other is we first start phase one in what we call planning and preparation, broadly speaking. And that's where we really come to understand CVSD. And so we had a series of kickoff meetings. We got to really understand the makeup of the district. And then that's where we proposed and then designed tools specifically to capture the information from the community. And so that was the creation of the 6 surveys, the unique surveys that were created for the district. It was the creation of focus group questions, the way that the focus groups were arranged and so forth. So that was the planning. Mm-hmm. Phase 2 really looked at data, and we looked at broadly speaking, 2 sets of data, qualitative data and quantitative data. The quantitative data looked at a whole host of data points from the district, such as academic results, student achievement data, culture data. We looked at discipline data, state test results. We also looked at qualitative data, policy, and so forth. That comprehensive review of the data then informed what questions we specifically asked during stakeholder engagement. And so stakeholder engagement was a series of different activities that involved the administration of the surveys, that then involved, and I believe there were over 50 unique stakeholder groups across different stakeholder categories that we then were able to tailor our questions based on the data that we saw. Now we are moving into analyzing everything together.
Okay, I got that, but I think I saw like a point about meeting people again or talking to people again in the phase 3, or I just mixed it up with another phase.
Oh, I don't know that I suggested that. So no, what we're about to do is officially end. And so our team has a few more interviews left to do this week, in addition to the family phone calls that will continue through this week. But as of June 17th, this upcoming Friday, we will officially close out all surveys. We will officially end all of our focus groups. And then that's when we will begin the data analysis. Go for it, Angela.
Thank you so much, Robbie. I was wondering, you mentioned the surveys, and I was wondering what kind of response rate you've had, particularly the community. That I think it was the same survey that went out to both parents and the broader community. I'm wondering what you've had for a response rate.
Yeah, I don't have the updated numbers there, but I can definitely supply that to Renee and he can share that with you. But last I remember, again, we were over, I don't want to misspeak here, but I'll definitely get you the updated numbers.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I just know that, the student numbers are encouraging and probably more like that. And I know that many teachers and teams carved out time during the school day for those to be completed. So I'm really thankful for that.
Absolutely. Ainika?
Thank you. I know that you were prepared to have interviews using different languages. How many of those did you use? How many languages did you have in the district? I'm just curious about that.
Absolutely. Would love if I had that information for you today. I will provide that as a part of the review I can give to Renee. As you know, our analyst, Krista, manages that data set for us. And so I'll actually get the update tomorrow during my check-in, my team check-in. However, we will absolutely supply that. But a little more context. So what Ainika is specifically referring to is that we took the family survey and identified a subset of high interest questions that we then translated into 6 different languages, and was provided this as another opportunity for different families to provide input. And so it was translated to Spanish, Portuguese, Arabic, Chinese, Russian, Hindi, and Vietnamese and Haitian Creole. And so again, in the report out of the numbers, you will see how that input broke down across the different languages as well.
And maybe I have another perhaps related question. Were you able to identify ways to go out into the community and reach people who might not otherwise, respond to a survey or come to the district? Like I think we had talked about this maybe in one of the first equity town halls. Wondering if you were able to figure out some ways to reach some folks where they are.
Yeah, that's always a tricky process. And our approach, in the best sense, hopefully captures that. And to be perfectly transparent, that's where we see a lot of the effectiveness of the individual phone calls. Because to the extent that asking someone to participate in a focus group does require a somewhat opt-in process, I would say while surveys, I think, captures a larger subset of folks who may not like the direct live engagement, what we have absolutely found, and I'll be honest, it's my favorite, and if we have the capacity, it would be what I would prefer to do, are the phone calls. For some reason, the feeling that families get, and it's true, is that we're speaking to them one-on-one. It makes them feel like their unique voices being respected and heard in that moment. And what we do find is that we get a lot of information shared during the phone calls. And so again, from a strategy perspective, that has been the most effective way that we can capture those who would not necessarily opt in. But I would say by and large, your guys' numbers are encouraging. Given the size of your district, I'm really encouraged by the number of students we heard from. We have almost a nearly 100% response rate from school-based leadership staff. We're still running the community family surveys because we will just let that run until we officially close it. But I think we were over 200 unique family surveys, community-based surveys. And so again, I think it's encouraging. And I'm a former teacher, so I'm absolutely okay with wait time.
That's what I was going to say, but I was muted, so I gave you even more wait time. So, well, Robbie, thank you so much for joining us today. And we have a check-in on Friday, so we will we'll catch up then. So thank you again, and thank your team for all the work that that you guys have done with our district so far this year. And
absolutely. A question just popped into the chat for me, and I'll quickly answer it, but I do have a hard stop.
Sure.
It was asked about how will our team be able to break down community responses by demographics. So every indicator that we captured in the surveys, we're able to report out against them, and we will. The only disclaimer I do say to that is, given certain population sizes in the district that could reveal the respondent, would not be revealed in any way that could be identified. And so again, across all the demographics and all the unique indicators that we capture across the different surveys, we are able to report out against those demographics and against those metrics. But our guarantee of both confidentiality and anonymity will have us not report out anything that would reveal who the respondent will be. And just to give you a very real life example, in the organization I work for, I am the only Black male who's in my position. And so all of my responses are known. And so again, we take special care to make sure that we can report out community voice and we report out findings, but we write the report in such a way that you will never know who said what and where something can be attributed.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Robbie.
Absolutely. Well, you guys have a great rest of your town hall and look forward to working with you all through the next few months.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Yes.
Okay. All right, Asma, we'd like to go ahead and begin with your, I guess, tell us about yourself and tell us how you came about to Vermont and why you were interested in joining us at CVSD.
Okay, thank you, Renee. Again, my name is Asma Abunaib. I am originally from Sudan. I came to US as adult the first time in 2009 to do just 3 weeks course and then go back to Sudan, and that's what happened. And then the school that I did my course with is SIT, School for International Training in Brattleboro. And they asked me to come back because of my, to come back for a master's degree. And they funded my master's actually because of my background working on the conflict area, and the school it has a lot of their interest in conflict transformation, peace building. So I came back in 2012, 2013, and I went back to Sudan again at the end of 2013. Actually, before I go, somebody who was at SIT introduced me to UVM, Education, Leadership and Policy Studies. And the director of the program asked me to apply because I had a plan for women education and to I was hoping to open my my own center in Sudan about women education and women rights and children rights in Sudan. So that was a good statement of purpose to do the education, leadership, and policy studies doctorate degree. So I applied. I went to Sudan, and I stayed like a year and a half, and then I came back for actually two purposes. The first one was I awarded a leadership fellowship for a project that I did for online course. The celebration was in San Francisco. And then after I came here, the UVM school, they contacted me that they have the assistantship fund for me so I can start the school now. And it was in a very tricky time in 2016. And they advised me not to to try to start the school process now, and not to have the visa from outside. So there was a lot of immigration complications. So I stayed since that time in Burlington 2016 at UVM. And then in my first summer at UVM, I joined Champlain Valley Office for Economic Opportunity for a summer project that they needed to establish to increase the participation of the immigrants and new refugees in the state in their activities, and to provide a culturally responsive education for them for the financial capability classes that they're providing in the Financial Futures program. So I started working, the plan was like not more than 1 year project. And I didn't know if I could stay even longer than the summer, but I ended up staying for 4 years. And the project was very successful. Most of the leadership in Vermont were really interested on it. We got a generous fund to do very innovative activities about financial house party, which is very unique, that attracted a lot of donors. So we go to the communities in their houses, and then we have a party that based on their culture, how they party, and then we talk about financial goals. This activity specifically, it get very famous. Everybody's asking about it now. Whenever they see me, no more house parties. So it ended to provide a very safe environment for them, a very safe space to talk about everything, including their kids' education and their own education for the young adults. So it was a big success. And then by the end of last year, I finished the curriculum that I was making for them for 7 languages. And the facilitator guide and for the classes that supposed to be taught by the community ambassadors that I hired and trained, so they don't need an English speaker in the middle. They can teach the class directly for the new arrivals, and then a facilitator guide for the house party event itself. And after that, I felt like my role is done. Like I achieved what I came for this job for. And then I started looking for a new job. Before I started applying, I traveled to see my mom and my family in Egypt. So I was away for more than months. And when I came, I was looking for a job. And then I saw your job in my search, and I applied. And I am really delighted that I got the job. From what I have seen in the last week, talking to people, visiting schools, and meeting like the school district community, I am really happy that I am part of this community, and I'm looking forward to work with all of you.
Well, thank you, Esma. We are very happy to have you working with us as well. So thank you for that. So a follow-up question that I have is, so when you were participating in these house parties and the parents were talking to you about their, the parents or their children were talking about their education, you know, I don't know how many of them were in our school district, but in general, what were some of the topics that the parents brought up?
The main issue that I think everybody was facing, a clear communication with the school, and they don't really understand. The reality is Vermont has a very small percentage of people of color, and I would say more than 95% of these people are refugees. They coming from refugee camps, and they stayed in, some of them, they spent half of their life in this camp. So they have no idea about a proper education system or how the schools working, or they were just receiving whatever the humanitarian organization provide for education, which is not really a lot to understand what the education system would look like. And in addition to that, they all started with this statement: we are adult. We know we cannot achieve a lot here because we already came as adult. The only reason we came to America because we wanted a good education of our kids. And now we don't understand how to support them. And they see that the kids also struggling with making choices in the education, and they're struggling with the resources that will help them to know where the resources to help them achieve their goals. And there was very significant story that happened one day after a house party. One of the parents came to me and he said, we have a really big problem and we wanted you to help us with it.
I can't hear you
Yeah.
anymore.
With him in the car, and then the school called him telling him that your kid is in the fight and we need you to come. And he was like, I didn't drop him yet at the school. And that's through interpreter. And then since then he feels like they are picking up for him.
Yeah.
And
So,
then
Esma, you left us on a cliffhanger because when you kind of went out for a little bit.
No.
And so you left us off at the parent had come up to you and said, I've got a really big problem we'd like for you to help us with. So if you could start over at that point, please.
Okay, so he started that he doesn't trust the school because one day they called him that his son is in the fight and they need him to come, and his son was still in the car with him.
Did everyone else lose the audio again?
Yeah. Yeah, I think we're getting, I think that's
He started investigating, and there was a group of children who was pulling him, and they were lied about him and telling lies about, like reporting some lies about him. And then they were doing investigation, and they were explaining that because of the regulation, we cannot give you all the details, but your son is part of the investigation that we are doing now, and we will tell you the result of the investigation. And then I think that what make it very hard for them to understand, they attached the policy with a letter. That is perfect thing to do for English speaker who understand how everything is working here. So they got somebody from all the kids to help them understand what is this big letter. And then the kid started reading everything and interpreting it to them with all the possible incident that can happen and their punishment. And they saw the school saying the kids has done all of this. This threats, everything, every bad thing that they were. So they were very nervous. The kid was very nervous. And it took me some time to explain it, this is not the case. But from there, my supervisor at CVOO and I, we took initiative to communicate with the school, and I asked them to have a kind of a little bit culturally competent meetings for these people and explain for them and try to break it down and make it very simple for them. People, they don't understand how the system works, how they support the kids. And this really depressing them, because that's what actually bring them to here, a good future for the kids. And it was very successful, actually. To make the story short, the school and even the community college and VSAC, they all agreed to have like one language at a time sessions to explain for the community slowly and in a simple way how the things works. So yeah, when you give them a safe space, they talk about everything. Like even there was a lot of stories also about the health system and how they have been treated in the community health centers and the medical and the UVM medical center. So it's, yeah, it is. They felt it like this is a place where they can share everything, and there was a lot, especially in education, because this is the reason they are here, for the future of the kids. So proper communication, simple content that explains the education system and include what they need to know about the education. Simple resources, also information about where the kids can go and how the schools see their role in their education, also what they can do, what they can do. That was mainly the problem that I was seeing a lot from when they talk.
Man, you answered you answered the question I was going to ask you, but because I was going to say, so what can we do in order to reach out to parents and make sure that we're serving their needs? But you answered the question. So thank you so much. I guess at this time we have about 5 minutes left. I'd love to open it up to any other questions that anybody may have, or Esma, if there's anything else you'd like to highlight, we can do that as well.
I'm good if anybody has a question.
Ainika.
Well, first of all, welcome, and we are very happy having you here. I'm just curious about how many languages do you speak?
Me?
Yes.
I speak 2 languages, English and Arabic, and we have a Sudanese dialect too that we talk, like mixed local languages, not one language. Yeah.
Thank you. And your experience about communication, simple communication, I think that is so important and so critical. So thank you to bringing this story and sharing it with us.
Thank you.
I'd love to go next, if I may.
You may.
I was curious. I know that I have been really excited about having a person in this position for some time. And I think there's a lot of anticipation in our district for a person in this position. And with that, probably a lot of different ideas about what that means to have a person in this position. It's kind of been talked about so much, and we've been through the process a couple of times. So I would love to know what it means to you, how you think about the position that you're in now, the role you're in, and without asking you to, I'm not asking you to promise anything or plan anything out, but I would just love to hear your thoughts about this role and what it means in a district like ours?
Since early, you might notice from my CV that I have undergraduate degree on textile engineering science. So it has nothing to do with this field of work. So it's, but I think I'm gone again. I was freezing, right?
The visual was frozen, but the audio was perfect.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I don't know what happened.
Okay.
So, I was, and then I switched very like because of the economic situation in Sudan, and the industry was collapsing. So I started working on a conflict area in Western Sudan, which is very diverse area. It has like more than 100 tribes, more than 100 languages, actually not dialects, languages. And that all this diversity was a cause for conflict for them, not for building it. Like they were not celebrating the diversity. So they were in this situation, in this place where I, like in Western Sudan, in Darfur, where I learned helping people understand our common humanity, and all the same, and help in a lot of political, social, and economic projects that were trying to bringing people together. That's where my interest in this work started. And the other thing is, when I came here to America, and I studied as international student who have a different language, different understanding of education, and how people supposed to receive education. It was very challenging in the beginning. It took me time to understand how it works in here, and everything was very like English is a second language. I started learning English when I was 27 years old. And I didn't expect myself to do master's and doctorate degree in English by this time at all. Like when I started learning English just for communication. And I was also lucky to have my master's at SIT, where it is international school. So every year they have at least a student from at least 25 countries. So you meet all the world in one campus, and you live together, you talk together, you eat together, you do group work together, you fight, you reconcile. So it was a very interesting experience, and I have learned a lot from it. And I think that is the time also where I feel like I have learned a lot of skills, knowledge to work on that. So in this field, and then my experience at CVOO also showed me that I was very proud of the success that we got to achieve actually in the 4 years that we were implementing the project. The participation of the New American community and the activity at CVOO increased by 250%, which was a big achievement. And then my education study at UVM also added to my knowledge about the education system here in America and how like things going. So I feel like I got the and also the stories that I just said about the financial house party and the communities, that the minority of my community that I was working with. That's what encouraged me that to apply, because I felt I have the knowledge, the experience to be on the other side, on the minority group and how it feels, and at the same time on the decision-making side, and how we can fix it, and on the implementation side and how we can make it work. So I'm really hopeful that I can do it. And I've seen conflicts like wars, so I feel like I can add something with the help of all the people.
That's great. Thank you so much, Esma. We
Thank you.
could definitely learn from your wisdom. So thank you.
Thank you.
With that, we've reached our time. So thank you, everybody, for joining us tonight for our last of our 21-22 DEI town halls. We will send out a schedule probably beginning with October, with our strategic plan town halls beginning in September. But we'll keep everybody updated, and thank you again, everybody, for coming. Have a great night and a great summer.